Welcome to Season 3 of the Builders Podcast. I'm Matt Levenhagen. Here we share the journeys, strategies, and lessons that help entrepreneurs build what's next. Builders helping builders. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. This is Matt Levenhagen, your host and guest today. I am back again. Today's going to be unique. This is a topic that I guess you could say is near and dear to my heart. It's very much grounded in my experience through life, through the last probably around 35 years, which is insane. I've done a lot in the last 35 years, believe it or not. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still alive. I got a lot going on right now in my life. Right. I actually just got a new dog, a yellow lab, a young one, and she's a little mental. And we are actually experimenting right now. I have her outside of the room here, and I'm hoping that she won't lose her mind. Gotta love her. Her name's Daisy. She's a new member of the family. We got her from a humane society. We really lucked out. She's beautiful. 1 year and 9 months, and still totally a puppy. We've had dogs for years. This is actually our fourth dog, my wife and I. But we haven't had a young dog in a long time. Our last two dogs, one died when she was like 8. She died from cancer, actually. And then the other one died just about 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago. And that one from LARPAR. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Just look up LARPAR. Something paralysis. Anyway, but yeah, it was very sad. But it was, she was almost 13 years old. So to go from 13 down to less than 2 is dramatic. But anyway, so that's actually good news. Something great happening. I've had another thing happening that I've kind of forced it on myself, and it's neither good nor bad. It's something. It's actually a kind of almost a therapeutic thing for me. Something that I uncovered after many. Actually, decades. I've had this kind of, I've talked about this before. We're not going to talk about AI today. You're welcome. But, I've talked about this local system and all this stuff. And one of the things I'm building into that system is a database, and there's timelines. And so I've kind of reconstructed my entire life into a timeline and journal entries and events and all the things in my entire life. And I got stuck in a certain era. I was actually, to do this, I've been going through, how some of you might collect things over the years and never throw them out. You have boxes somewhere in your house where there's just old letters and from old lovers or from friends or pictures from all the days you've had. And if you've had a crazy life, that could be a lot of stuff. And I've had a little bit of a crazy life. I've had many different phases for the last 35 years. But as I was going through all that, besides going through all that, all the old memories and journals, one of the things I've done over the years is I have done a little journaling here and there. I'm never consistent, like long term, but I might take, you might see, some written journals for a few weeks or a few months. But there was a particular time frame, and actually multiple time frames, but this particular time frame from like 1991, in fact, August 4th of 1991, through about January 27th of 1993, so about a 1.5 year period, where I decided to do audio journals. And these audio journals have opened up a lot of raw stuff that I'd forgotten. I literally have not listened to these since I recorded them. That's mental. Okay. It's weird hearing your own voice. Now, I was 20 years old at the time. I'm aging myself here, but I was 20 years old, right? And I sound young. I sound like a kid. It's interesting. But I was a very motivated kid, but in a very bad place in that time of my life. And that was part of the reason I did it, because there was a lot of change and me trying to find myself in that time. So through all of that, I've been thinking there's a lot of pieces that I could draw out of that. And I always love to draw experiences from my real life and bake it into an episode or any content I'm writing or doing, because I think learning from real life is golden. It's a beautiful thing because it's something you might relate to. You might be able to connect to some experience you have or are having now, or it's just a different way you might hear something that you never have before, and a light bulb goes on, because you can hear the same message 100 times, and it's just that one time somebody says it in just that right way, and then it all sinks in and makes sense. Today, though, we're going to talk about being self-taught as a builder. It's about really, to actually learn your craft and be really, really good at yourself and resilient long term, and to learn deeply of what you're doing. That there's a lot that you don't want to skip steps. You don't want to take all the shortcuts. You can take some shortcuts, depends on, but there's shortcuts you could take. Somebody could just hand you a blueprint, be like, here you go, or you could buy a business, and then day one, it's already built, but you didn't build it. And what happens when things don't go right if you didn't build it? Now, you might hopefully have people in the organization, depends on what it is and how big it is and all that good stuff. But if it's a small business, who knows what you're getting. But for me, and so I'm gonna talk about a little bit about art. This is not an art episode, but it is part of my story, a big part of my story. Most people don't realize or wouldn't know that I actually consider myself still an artist. It's been a long journey. But I started out as a young man trying to be an artist, literally make a living at it, do it. That was going to be my life. And so I'm going to draw from that story, but then we'll land on, how that ties into my business today and my agency, and then how you might apply it, right? Through that, maybe you can see how you could apply these principles and this way of looking at things. And really, that's all it is. It's just a way of looking at things, how I look at things. Now, I mean, a lot of people are out there, that's what they do. They just buy business, they go in, they don't need to understand everything. They hire somebody that does it for them, whatever. This isn't for those people, right? This is for somebody that wants to build something, whether you're creative or you're whatever business you're in. It's for those that, want to weigh the cost of being self-taught and just diving into something and just immersing yourself, can't talk today, drowning yourself in everything and building it from the ground up, from scratch. Maybe you're bootstrapping it or whatever you're doing. So let's get started. So since high school, all right, late in high school, I made it I had a real interest in art. I wanted to be an artist, maybe. I also liked business. So I've had this dual thing in my life for a long time. And it confused me for a number of years. But in fact, when I've gone to school a couple different times. When I went to college the first time, I was taking some art classes. I was taking some business classes. It was actually a UW system here in Wisconsin, UW Eau Claire. I went there and I was taking economics, introduction to business, whatever they called it. But I was taking some art classes, and which was fun. I was that guy with the big, portfolio thing and going to draw stuff. It was that. It was kind of always kind of on the fence what I wanted to do early on. But then there was a time frame where I decided in that 91 area where I was making these audio journals. After I was struggling a lot. I had a lot going on. We won't get into everything in this episode, but I had a lot going on. It was a bad time. But through all of that, I was doing a lot of reading and a lot of, I even read, that's the year I picked up Think and Grow Rich. This is pre-internet. Okay, so remember this. I just was in a bookstore and I saw this golden book on the shelf. I picked it up and I read it. And that book and a lot of books on positive mental attitude and all that stuff, it really helped me. And number of other things influenced me to just keep trying to do stuff. And I was going from job to job, trying different things, sales jobs, all kinds of stuff. But towards the end of 1991, I made a really hard decision, not a hard decision, but like a hardened decision to really pursue art, to finally just say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And what I ended up doing is fusing that with bartending, which was my thing because I like to party and have fun. And I like to throw the party. And so, hey, why not bartending? I actually went to the International Bartending Institute at the end of 1990, graduated from there, learned hundreds of drinks. Of course, just a little secret for anybody who would do something like that. Even though you go to International Bartending Institute, I don't even know if it's around anymore. Even if you do that, you come out, you still need experience. So there's this kind of catch-22 thing. Like you still can't get a job because, well, yeah, I got that, but the bars don't care. And so I had to work in dive bars and until I got enough experience where I finally got into some nice restaurants and then, went from there. But so that actually ended up turning out to be like my revenue source to support myself as an artist. Now, I decided to take a path. Now, there was also this thing where I could have gone to art school. There's reasons I decided not to do that. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to be self-taught. That sounds simple enough. It worked. Like I did actually have art shows that I threw myself and with other artists. And then I also sold art via commission. So I was doing stuff. I didn't become rich or famous. Didn't become a big, everybody did not know my name in the art world, but I did all right. Eventually, I set it down to pursue other businesses and other things in my life. But again, that's another part of the story. Yeah. But the thing about that time was I was self-taught. I decided, I'm going to learn everything I can. Now you got to understand, this is before the internet. This is before algorithms and there's, online audiences, your Instagrams, all that stuff. This is way before that. Everything I had to learn in those years was from books, going to the bookstore, going to the library. I spent a lot of time in the library, bookstores, even in those tapes. I'm talking about I gotta go back to the library. I got some overdue books. Anyway, so there was no like easy path and hard path. It was just like one path, right? That's the only way I knew how I was going to learn. I wasn't in the art communities and all that stuff. It was just like, I'm just going to, I still have them. I have books, business art books, how to sell art. So I had that. And then plus obviously the books on how to do art, but that was the path. Right. But in that process, I learned a lot, I learned how to learn. I learned patience, discipline, and just getting better over time. And if I had a problem I needed to solve, I went out and figured out how to solve that. Or if I couldn't, I would just figure out how to solve it. If I didn't have anything that told me how to do it, I would go and I would, fail, learn, sometimes win, right? So, but the biggest thing is just, I learned how to stay in the room, in that time frame. I made a really, like I said, at the end of 91, I was like, this is a real commitment. Like I just decided this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to accomplish it. And I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't know how I was getting there. I just went for it because I knew that I loved art. I did since I was a kid, right? And I just made the decision. And so there went my journey, right? And now shortcuts, when I'm talking about shortcuts in this episode, it's not the tools and things like that. It's not really learning from others. It's just, kind of outsourcing your understanding, shortcutting yourself to outsourcing the understanding. So borrowing tactics without understanding the depth of those tactics, right? I've done that a lot in the past, or leaning at marketing circles and stuff where people just get attacked and go out and do it, and then they fail because they didn't, or it stops working and they don't know what to do. So, kind of seeing, somebody, here's the end. You don't know what the beginning looks like or the middle. You skip the friction of building something from the ground up. You don't learn the judgments involved, all the decisions being made along the way. So it's really, somebody can hand you a blueprint to do something versus building it yourself from day one and forging yourself in that fire of all the trial and errors and all that good stuff. So blueprint's going to show you the outcome and say, here you go. The building forms the actual muscle memory of building something from the ground up, and it really serves you. I mean, and we're going to get into my agency and stuff, but other businesses too I've had where I built something up and then something collapses and doesn't work, but I'm not, when things falter and we go backwards a little bit, I know I've been there, right? And I just have to build it back up again, or retune, whatever, or pivot, whatever is entailed. But yeah, so what the shortcuts kind of skip is kind of I know, like, you think being confused is a bad thing, right? Being confused and lost. But if you don't, like in those days, I was really confused about a lot of things and I had to go out and figure it out, right? But it made me better. It taught me what I was doing and made me a better artist and better at the business of art, I think, for what I was doing. You learn, if you take a shortcut, you don't know the why of what you're doing sometimes, right? Why do we do things? I bet there's people that, especially if you buy a business, I can imagine. I've never bought a business. Well, I acquired one. That was different because I built it initially. I built it, I left the company, then they sold it to me. So it's a different. So I kind of do the nuts and bolts of it. But I can imagine, but there's a lot of decisions that happen in building a business, right? So you understand why you do things. But if you get a business and you're doing something and you look at that thing, it's like, why? You want to ask those questions, but maybe no one can answer that for you because no one built it. You have to know, like, things are going to break along the way, right? So, being able to fix things as they evolve and as things break, you learn from those experiences. You learn how to adapt when things change, whether you go up or down, and whatever is happening in your business. There's things can change in your industry or what you're doing and the products you sell or whatever. You have to learn how to adapt. If you built it from the ground up, you'll have a better time with that. So, to my agency, it's actually interesting right now because these principles I'm talking about are kind of playing out right now for me. My agency, I'm in the 8th year. So we just celebrated year 7, the end of year 7, and we're in our 8th year. And the agency, started out, pretty much solo. I was building it from the ground up, as we're going to talk about here. And then we got to a peak, at about a dozen people working for me in every different manner you can think of, from project managers to developers, designers, to quality assurance people, and then various other VAs. And now this past year, 2 years, things are in a different stage, a down stage, where I've actually shrunk the team again, but I'm rebuilding in a way that, because I've already been there, right? I built it. So there's a lot I'm not scared or worried about it because this is what I'm doing. Even if it's just me doing stuff, which not just me doing stuff right now, but even if it was, like, I always thought that, I'm like, even if I go all the way down to just Matt working again, I've been there, done that, right? I built it to begin with. Like a lot of people that say that if you take all their money away, they could rebuild what they did because they did it. They know how. But when I built my agency, you know, I didn't really have a day one blueprint. I had was let go of a job because they got out of the WordPress business and what I was doing for them, and I was just I was thrown out, and I immediately started a business doing what I was doing just for myself now, right? But there's no blueprint. No one said, you know, hey, this is how you're going to build this agency. I didn't even really know, like, when I first started out, I was really technically, you know, I called myself an agency, but I'm a one man agency, right? And then, but I had like contractors and stuff that would help me. And, but then until I built a team that I hired and all that stuff. But when I started out, I didn't know really enough about pricing or, you know, what clients I wanted, how I was going to position myself. I learned a lot of that through experimentation, trying, taking whatever I could get, and then testing different pricing, even on an hourly. Like some stuff we do is hourly. Like I started out pretty low, and then I slowly kept raising it, and people kept paying me. It's a weird thing, right? I'm like, when I was at $40 an hour, I'm like, oh man, well, let me try 60. Let me try 60. I might lose some clients. They kept paying me. And then I was like 90. They kept paying me. 100 and some. They kept paying me. It's a beautiful thing. But I learned those things. There was a course I took. It was called, I think, Agency Accelerator or something like that. There was a course that gave me some blueprints of how to maybe structure things and even like legally, some legal related stuff, and how to create package services. That was probably the biggest thing I got out of that. So that's something I learned there, but there's a lot of other things that you have to learn along the way. So but that was an example of, I saw there was things from that course that I could pull out and learn from and apply, but it wasn't just that, it was other things, but it was, that was a way for me to that's the self-taught, right? No one's given me the blueprint. I have to go out and find the things that are going to fill in the gaps that I have, or to figure out how to get to the little next level, and then the next level, and the next level. A lot of it's just talking to people, talking to other agency owners, talking to, seeing what other people are doing, communities, things like that. It's just learning and learning and learning. Each client taught me something, you know, that the courses aren't going to teach you, right? And it's deeper. It's like, do I even want to work with this type of client? Is this the industry I want to be in? Do I want to put up with such and such a thing? So you filter that out over time too, and you're learning. And this is really truly, you know, in the trenches, right? But then over time, as things go on, you know, you're doing this, you're learning, you're trying to learn from all the resources you have today, today is very different, right? There's YouTubes, there's the internet. This is a different scenario. I was actually, just as a side note, like, I've over the years, I've done art. I usually go through a phase of some kind. Like 6-7 years ago, I did some digital art for a while. I was focused on portraits, and mainly at that time, I was playing with digital art. I'd never done that before. Me, I'm more like tactile. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm actually got the sketchbooks. I got the sketchbooks. I got my paint ready to go. I'm going to be doing canvases, that good stuff. But one of the amazing things that I figured out though is that, and it just blew my mind, was just what's available today. It's not all good information, but there's a ton. Like, compared to what I was doing back then, when I had to go to the bookstore to or go to the library, now it's like right there in front of me. And it's all these tutorials and great courses, and there's YouTube videos on everything from broad to like narrow channels. It's just a beautiful thing. But I digress. So one of the things though that through that process, what happens is you keep the bricks that, like, you're building your foundation, right? You don't keep all the bricks. You try different things. You're testing. You're going out and you're learning something, and maybe that thing works. Maybe it's how you invoice or how it is pricing, or maybe it's how you structure contract. Whatever it is, right? Some things are going to work. Some things are not going to work. But you keep the bricks that work, and you start building your foundation until you have a good foundation of all the things that work for you. Not somebody that gave you the blueprint and said, here, this is how you should do it. No, you're figuring out how you can do it. You're in the weeds doing the thing. And that really forges a really good foundation. Because even when you build on top of that foundation, like I'm experiencing now with my agency, that even when when you've built on top of it and some things like collapse and things like that, your foundation is strong. You know how to do business. You know how you built it the first time. You're going to have to pivot and try different things, depending on what it is. But you just keep at it, and you have this situation where you just got to figure it out. Right. And again, all those skills that you learned on the way up to figure out how you got to where maybe you, like in my case, I was successful, I'm still successful. I just have a smaller team. I don't want to put that out there. I'm still in business, but the size of the business, is up, was up and then it's down a little bit, and we're going to go back up. Okay. We're working on it. But through all that, though, all the principle, the way I learned and how I became self-taught and the experimentation, how I approached it is all still relevant today. And it's exactly how I'm applying it. And it's how I've applied it to other things, other businesses I've had in the past as well. It's the same thing. I've had a few other businesses. But you keep what works, you throw out what doesn't. I didn't throw everything away. Well, that would have been, then I would just close the business. But that's how you survive. So the bricks can be, things like, like a, good, how you communicate, how you just, just how you run your business, the little pieces along there, and how you actually operate probably within that business. Even things like knowing when to say no. That's a brick. That's one of the bricks. I have a brick that says, this is what you say no to. That's, again, that circles kind of back to, if you buy a business or you buy into something or you do something, there's some, like, this is especially true back now. I don't really pay attention to the internet marketing world as a whole, like all the, I don't even know what you call it anymore. But back in the 2000s, I was heavily into internet marketing, doing all kinds of stuff, affiliate marketing, resale rights, private label rights. And there was so many tactics and things and little businesses you could build and all this stuff. And if somebody hands you one of those things and you just, it works for a while, great. But it may, but what happens when it's not working or something changes and it's not in your DNA, you didn't build it. That's the whole thing. I had a guy, so those of you that listen to this podcast for some time will know that I was, I did affiliate marketing, pay-per-click advertising. That was, if you knew me between like 2004 and about 2012, that was the heart of a lot of what I did. And what, it changed over time. And eventually I phased out that business, but that's what I did. I remember, so I taught it as well. I had memberships. Thousands of people learned from my courses and stuff and memberships, and it's a whole thing. But the story I'm pulling from that is there was a particular gentleman who learned my methods, and often not often, but a number of people that came through my courses did way better than I did. And this particular guy he made just mind-boggling amount of money. And I remember him telling us that it was, we were actually at a seminar or something. We met there. I can't remember if he was talking, I was talking at the seminar or whatever on this stuff. And I just remember him it was like this time frame we made like $800,000, and of course he had to spend like 4 to 500,000 to make that, but that was still a pretty good year, right? And and we're just like, wow. And but the thing is, I talked to him years later, and the fact of the matter is that stopped working. So he learned the blueprint. He'd been given the blueprint to do this thing, but really he had nothing underneath it. So when that stopped working, there was nothing to fall back on, or and in fact, he completely got out of PPC altogether. And until somebody eventually got back into it, not help, like consulting or whatever he was doing. But anyway, but that's kind of an example. I think it sort of fits this, where you're giving I was the one giving the blueprint. I'm talking about blueprints, and I was the one giving the blueprint. But I gave a lot of foundational stuff. I literally had like a 200-page guide at the end. It developed over the years. It started like as a 30-page guide and kept growing over the years, versions coming out. And I had 200-page guide from how to write the ads, to build the landing pages, to drive traffic, and all the philosophy behind it, and how to test markets. And it was a whole thing. But still, I figured all that out. How did I figure it out? By doing it, right? I had actually learned some different methods, and I kept sharing my results. I don't want to digress too much here, but I kept sharing my results in these communities. And someone who said, you should, write a book. It would be cool to learn from you what you're doing, because you seem to be, having a good success. And that's what I ended up doing. And yeah, it's a whole thing. But then, back to this, building for me, and I've done this numerous times. It was, from the art thing. This is a contracting as well, where I kind of regretted that I didn't work for a contracting company first. I did painting and repair, a little remodeling. I kind of regretted I didn't work for a company first, because it would have been a heck of a lot easier to figure things out. But I actually learned that business too, like from the ground up. I'm like, well, I know how to paint. I was an artist. How hard is it to paint houses? It's the same, right? It's just a different, different materials that you're painting on. I mean, yeah. So, but I had to learn drywalling, and because I was math painting repair, so I was repairing drywall, and then we got into remodeling for a few years. I did that for a couple of years. I learned all that, but I actually, there was a little bit of advantage because I did hire a team and had a crew, and I learned from them. So that was kind of cool. I learned a lot of my painting skills, in that realm, more from the people I hired. So that's kind of interesting too. But yeah, I mean, that's, so if you feel like, if you're starting out building and stuff, stick with it, man. Stick with it. Cause if you're looking for shortcuts, you're looking for like, there's got to be some like secret sauce that that will instantly turn me into a success tomorrow. If you're building it, if you're in there and you're struggling, and, and it's taking time, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's not a bad thing. You're learning how to develop your business. You're learning all the ins and outs, and you're having the issues, you're overcoming issues, you're figuring out how to do things. All of that stuff is going to, when you do reach, even when you start hiring people and you have a team, and people are doing you're giving jobs to other people, taking stuff off your plate and giving that to other people, the ability to talk to those people and communicate with those people, and know your craft and know your business. I mean, that's super valuable. I think it's something that would, like I said, if something changes, you lose somebody, and maybe you have a team member. Now, team members don't stay forever. You lose a team member, they just leave, they quit, or they have to go, and you can't find somebody to replace them right away. You've done that. You can slot yourself in, or there's some issue they're dealing with. You can talk to them about it because you've done that, right? And then you're building your business in a unique way. You can build it how you want to build it. When I was doing art, Now, I could have gone to an art school. I don't know if it would have taught me everything about the art business or anything like that. Regardless, someone I was just reading somebody who said like they didn't learn anything about art business in school. They just learned how to paint or something. Anyway, so but if you learn how to build a business yourself from the ground up, you can design it the way you want to design it. You can do things the way you want to do it. You can, piecemeal it in a way. And then you build something unique too that your competitors are going to have a hard time competing against because you've built it the way you want to build it and operate. And, your secret sauce. You built your own secret sauce. Like I look at my business, my agency's strong, even though we might ebb and flow. It's always meant to be elastic, right? I didn't ever expect to always have necessarily a 12-man team. Maybe I would have a 50-man team and woman, 50-man or whatever. And you know what I mean. 50-person team, right? Or a 20 or a 15 or a 12 or 5 or 3. But then we can go back up to 10. It was always designed to be elastic. That I talked about that for years. But it doesn't matter because you've been there, done that. So like I could sit here and be like, okay, well, if I have to go back to freelancing, I've been there, done that. I've done freelancing, right? If I'm going to go work for a company, whatever, I've been there, done that. And that can be the same for you, especially if you're building up. So don't be sad. Don't be, worried about, and impatient. If you're in the trenches right now and you're struggling, just keep going. Be persistent, be, resilient and get through it. And on the other side of that, you're going to be in an amazing place. Shortcuts, help you arrive faster sometimes, but really staying in the work, that's going to turn you into someone that can carry what you build. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Till next time, take care. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And UnifiedLabs.ai is where we explore smart, practical ways to integrate AI directly into your website and e-commerce flows. From intelligent chatbots to marketing automation to back-end reporting, all with a strong focus on user experience and making your systems work smarter. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with someone who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building smarter, bolder, and with purpose.